That full interview will be airing on Friday, just to let you know. And for now, let's get more on this. Let's cross to international affairs commentator Marko RT. Hey there, Marko. What do you make, and I've just heard that clearly, of the Russian ambassador's claim that there's not enough transparency, or he's saying no transparency on the part of the British authorities? Does there need to be? I guess Skripal's daughter is still a Russian citizen. It seems she was going backwards and forwards to Moscow, so I guess had a Russian passport. As far as Mr. Skripal's concerned, I don't know if he had a Russian passport or not. I mean, i.e., how much effort should the UK be making here now to try and be more transparent?
Well, it almost doesn't matter whether they're Russian citizens or not. I mean, here we have an instance where someone, in this case Russia, is being accused. So someone being accused is not being told what the evidence is against them. In fact, they're being denied sight of the evidence that they could then question, investigate and contest. So in the British legal system, in any Western legal system, that would be viewed as utterly scandalous. But it seems that the British establishment thinks that that's the way to treat Russia, which clearly is illegal, as the ambassador mentioned. It's also immoral, and it also prevents a proper investigation, which may indeed be the point of making all the evidence opaque.
Well, you think that would be blatantly obvious to the British authorities? I suppose there's an element of heat of the moment and political pressure and public opinion at the moment over there in Britain. And do you think behind the scenes we are going to see some more transparency very soon then?
Well, it's a question of motive, really, who benefits from the whole thing. And we would see transparency if there was a desire to end or sort out the situation, or to come to some final understanding of what really happened, rather than rush into judgment as is happening now. But it does seem that the timing of this whole episode before major events in Russia, including the World Cup, is really designed to discredit the Russians in the court of public opinion without giving them a chance to address the basis on which they've been demonized. So I don't see this stopping anytime soon, because as we saw before the Sochi Olympics, there's always a raft of issues suddenly come up to accuse the Russians with, designed to leave a sour taste in the mouth of people who would otherwise commend the Russians for organising successful events.
Yeah, I mean, but that aside, any diplomacy to just the Russian events, etc. aside, even trying to sort out what's gone on here, it's not going to be helped by the fact today that the UK Defence Secretary was telling Moscow to basically, well, he did. He said, shut up and go away. It's not exactly very diplomatic or a helpful way forward in practical terms, is it, to try and get to the bottom of this?
Well, that's right, but I mean, this is a politician of lesser competence who's trying to punch above his weight, who doesn't really care about Russian sensibilities, because, of course, in fact, the angrier the Russians get with his words, the more money he's likely to get back in his military budget for so-called defence against the angered Russian bears. So he doesn't mind offending the Russians. What he really wants to do is to impress the British at home with how hawk-like he is. At the moment, everyone's going to look like a hawk, otherwise they'll be viewed as beyond the pale of political discussion in Britain at the moment.
So you can see in Britain why there's anger. Everybody wants to find an answer. Everybody wants to get to the bottom of who was behind this. Now, Russia's saying it's got nothing to do with it. It's doing everything it can, but it's got nothing to do with it. It's not being included properly in the investigation. As far as Russia stands at the moment tonight, then, is it doing all it can? Has it done all it can, given what I've just said?
Well, Russia's been excluded from doing what it can. I mean, we should understand that this particular nerve agent is something that the inventor of it, or one of the inventors of it, has been in the US for the last 20 years. The US had access to where this nerve agent was being used in Uzbekistan from the late 90s onwards, and it's been described by this particular Russian emigre scientist who's now in the States in his own book, a book called State Secrets, An Insider's Guide to Russia's Chemical Weapons Program. Now, in that book, he reveals the formula required to make this particular chemical compound, and it's been established by professors at Sheffield University that on the basis of what he described, that compound could be produced almost anywhere by a chemist in a modern lab today. So this idea that it was produced then is false, and the idea that it couldn't be reproduced by someone else, by any other...
Yeah, but it depends who you listen to. We're also hearing it could only have been produced... It can only have been produced in a very technologically advanced, state-sponsored kind of lab. But, hey, that's another conversation.
Incorrect.
We're out of time for it. The incorrect, you're saying again. Well, thank you very much, Marko, and thanks for coming on the programme. Do appreciate it. Marko RT, the political commentator.